There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green, because we live in the United Corporations of America. Salutations. It is Jordan with Status Coup, Monday, March the 3rd, 2025, in the United Corporations of America, or shall I say the United Crypto Bros of America. Wait till you hear about this. I don't even know if scam is strong enough. What's going on with Trump and basically handing the treasury to the crypto bros. We'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to have Freddie Brewster. He's a reporter with the Lever News. He's going to join us a little bit later. He's done great work on all the crypto scams going on. And crypto could get confusing for people, including me. But what Trump has announced is basically allowing some of the biggest crypto bros who just happen to pour in hundreds of millions of dollars to his campaign to enrich themselves off of our backs, basically. So we'll get into that. If we have enough time, RFK, his top communications person, quit over his handling of the measles outbreak, which I did a video earlier because he kind of-ish urged people to get vaccinated for measles. So check out that video. But Zeynab and Zeynab Day joining us again, wonderful journalist, author of the Bullhorn Bulletin, which is in the description. Everybody should go subscribe, smash that like button, share this live stream. You know, I think we've been doing a good job covering, stories other people aren't covering, but obviously covering Trump and the madness of Trump and Musk, and every day is a different scam and outrage and serious gutting of critical services. But I think we would be doing a disservice not to really focus on the Democratic Party, and I'm going to lead with it, because part of why you get this authoritarianism and blatant corruption is when the masses get so fed up economically for decades that they basically say, to hell with the ruling class. We're going to go with this guy who sounds different. And when you don't really have an opposition party to extremism, when you don't really have a true opposition to fascism, and the Democratic Party, and I don't want to do a false equivalence, as bad as Biden was, he wasn't as corrupt as we're seeing Trump, Musk. He wasn't gutting things this badly. So I'm going to call it like it is. I think Trump demonstrably, in many ways, is currently exhibiting worse than Biden. That doesn't mean Biden was great. However, what is coming out now about the Democrats, I guess you call it, what do they call it in politics? The autopsy from the 2024 election?
Post-mortem is what we would call it.
Yes. What's coming out now, apparently the brainiacs there feel we got to move further to Trump. We got to move further to the Republicans if we're going to win back the working class. And they have deduced this by a basically lavish retreat they just went on in one of the wealthiest parts of the country with right-wing Democrats, who the media likes to call moderates or centrists. They are not. But first, before I read this, Colin, if you have the charts, I want to remind people what this 2024 election was actually about. Because there's been a lot of talk about cancel culture and wokeism and blah, blah, blah. Just look at the numbers if you have the charts, Colin. The exit polls of the 2024 election, this is what the majority of voters said was their top issue. If you have the one in the past year, inflation has caused your family. That would be 53 plus 20 plus 22. That's 75%, either severe hardship or moderate hardship. Of all voters, 75% of them said inflation had caused moderate or severe hardship. When you say condition of the nation's economy, not so good or poor was 68%. That is why Donald Trump won. It's really not more complicated than that. Are there other cascading factors? Did some subsection of the electorate not like Dems on cultural stuff or wokeism, or was there a COVID backlash? Perhaps. But at the end of the day, Carville was right about one thing. It's the economy's stupid, and Democrats were blamed, right or wrong. Biden was blamed, right or wrong, for the inflation. And a lot of people, Zaina, are not like you and I. They're not diehard into politics. They start paying attention to an election a week or two before. And a lot of them, including ones I interviewed, said, I don't love Trump, but things were cheaper under him, so whatever. So,
and you got to think about the people that didn't show up. It was one of the lowest voting turnouts in modern history. And I know Greg Palast has done some great reporting on voter obstruction. And I do agree that that was a problem, obviously, through his reporting that was uncovered. But at the same time, a lot of people also just stayed home. So even these polls, for the people who voted, when looking at those who may have stayed home, you may even see larger numbers of people dissatisfied with the economy.
Right. So, woke was not even like in the top 10. And some might say, well, Jordan, it wasn't given as an option. Come on. Do you really think people who, like 60-something% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck? A new study that Zaina and I reacted to a week or two ago shows that we have a real unemployment level near 25%. You really think the masses are voting on woke? No, the masses are voting on the fact that before, at the time of the election, groceries were $100 more than it had been 4 years ago. Housing through the roof, utilities through the roof, everything through the roof. It's not all Biden's fault. It was a global thing. There was corporate price gouging attached to it that Biden did nothing about, and he could have. But I want to set that up because just objectively, Trump won. And by the way, contrary to what he puts out, it was not a landslide. In several of the swing states he won, it was very narrow. But he won largely because, the rent was too damn high, for lack of a better word. But the Democratic Party's brainiac solution to this is not, hey, maybe we should, be a little populist on economics. No, their solution, and this was born from a retreat they just went on. Politico headline: centrist Dem group rails against leftist identity politics and purity tests. Oh, gosh. When several dozen Democratic political operatives and elected officials gathered at a Tony resort off the Potomac River last month, frustration boiled over at the left wing of their party. Zaina, since you've been in D.C. here and there, working in politics back in the day, I'm going to venture to guess they did not do their resort at a Motel 6. I'm going to venture to guess that their resort was at a pretty nice hotel in a nice part of D.C. or Virginia.
Probably
Yes.
right up there in McLean, I would assume, the wealthiest neighborhood in the country.
Let's win back the working class by having champagne and caviar in some of the wealthiest parts of the country. I digress. Democrats had become too obsessed with, quote, ideological purity tests and should push back, quote, against far left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging, according to a document of takeaways from the gathering produced by the center-left group Third Way and obtained by Politico. First of all, Third Way is not center-left. It's not centrist. It's not even moderate. It is a Wall Street-funded advocacy group that media labels as centrist. It is right-wing Democrats, let's be clear. The group of moderate Democratic consultants, campaign staffers, elected officials, and party leaders who gathered in Loudoun County, Virginia for a day-and-a-half retreat where they plotted their party's, quote, comeback, searched for why the long search for why they lost and what to do about it. But much of what they focused their ire on centered on the kind of identity politics that they believe lost them the races. Wait a minute, Zaina. These are the people that created and weaponized identity politics for the last 20 years. And now they are turning or blaming identity politics? What are they talking about, these fucking idiots?
Well, you know what gets me is that the right wing are the ones who blow things out of proportion and push, and that's not because of the left wing per se. That's because of trying to make a mountain out of a molehill so that they can hide their true intentions of what they're doing now, which is gutting our government, corporate bailouts, massive subsidies to corporations, billionaires not paying their taxes. That's what this is all about. And they'll use the right wing are the ones who engage in identity politics. They're the ones that will take something like the bathroom bills and blow them way out of proportion, and at the same time they're the ones fighting within that praxis to take away rights, to
Right.
go to the extreme, to say, we're going back to the place where it's don't ask, don't tell in the military, or even worse, they're firing people based on what, DEIA? And under this umbrella of DEIA, they're trapping up veterans and firing them. They're firing people with disabilities that need accessibility, because that A stands for accessibility. So to fall into the trap and to say, hey, all this propaganda that the right wing did was somewhat effective. So what we need to do is we need to capitulate to the supremacists and the crazies, because we're unwilling to fight for things that were popular, like Medicare for all, like updating our infrastructure that's failing, like it's failed in Flint, like it's failed all across the country, to stop um, billionaires from funding our elections. They're not talking about any kind of campaign finance reform, and we'll get into this in a few minutes, but in fact, they're talking about the opposite.
I want to let me get into this. So, Colin, if we could go to the next one, it's from Politico Playbook. So, Politico Playbook has like a couple bullets of their main takeaways. Those gathered laid out 20 solutions for how Democrats can regain working class trust and reconnect with them cultural. You ready for the solutions? Play a drinking game to this stupidity. The party should, quote, embrace patriotism, community, and traditional American imagery. Yes, the problem is the Democrats don't have a hard enough boner for patriotism and traditional American imagery.
Bring back Uncle Sam.
So so basically their big plan is to target the Fox News viewer. Democrats should ban, quote, far left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests and, quote, move away from the domination of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. We're going to get back to that.
No sense. How do small dollar donors not align with the broader electorate? How are billionaire donors and multimillionaire donors more aligned with? And I have one more thing to say about this bullet, and then we can move on. But when have they not blocked small dollar donor candidates? When have they not blocked that messaging? I worked 100 federal races, all small dollar, all no corporate donations, and we were blocked by the Democratic Party every step of the way. Paula Jean Swearengin, the Democrats in West Virginia and nationally backed the Republican Shelley Moore Capito in the Senate over Paula Jean Swearengin, because Paula Jean Swearengin had an actual leftist populist message and was running on Medicare for all. She was running on ending corporate handouts and bailouts. She was running on real reform, bringing back Glass-Steagall, and they blocked her, even though she was very popular before they started pouring in millions to Shelley Moore Capito to beat her.
I'm going to get back to this small dollar thing because I'm going to flip out, but I just want to read the rest.
Okay.
So we have to, quote, push back against far left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging. If only far left groups had any influence, that would be a dream. Candidates should, quote, get out of elite circles and into real communities, Example, tailgates, gun shows, local restaurants and churches. Yes, because if you go to the tailgate and gun show and hawk your I don't know, fucking $25,000 housing credit that nobody, even though you have to pay the first $25,000 up front, that'll do it if you do it at a tailgate. It's not the actual policy that's wrong. It's that you're not doing it at the gun show. You're not messaging at the tailgate or the local, I don't know, small barbecue. The party needs to, quote, own the failures of democratic governance in large cities and commit to improving local government. All right. I have a migraine. Let's start.
Yeah, that's true. But how many times did we report right here on Status Coup that 65% of seats were uncontested this year, and that in states like Kentucky and Georgia, 80% of seats went unchallenged, GOP seats, and that the Democrats have defunded these state parties? You have been covering the Democrats defunding state parties in places like Arizona and New Mexico, Nevada, Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. They abandoned the 50-state strategy. What are you talking about? Focus on local elections. Yeah, that's needed. But what are you going to run on? Billionaires need to fund us?
Yeah. And I want to go even further into this because it gets more absurd. Colin, this is from the actual the actual document of their little autopsy. Page 2. Takeaways on why Democrats are not trusted by the working class on the economy. Wait till you get a whiff of this shit. Vilification of wealth. Democrats are seen as hostile to success, indifferent to people's desire to attain wealth, while reflexively attacking wealthy business leaders instead of promoting economic mobility and aspiration. Wait a minute. Was this the Republican autopsy after Mitt Romney lost, or is this the Democratic autopsy? I can't tell the difference. Vilification of wealth? I don't know, Zeynab, because the last Democratic candidate who's not even a Democrat who got the most people out there, his name was Bernie Sanders. And you know what he was doing? Vilifying wealthy fucks like the people who wrote this report. Vilifying wealth. Are you insane? Disconnected messaging. Democrats focus on broad economic indicators instead of acknowledging real struggles like high prices. Yeah, people don't need you to acknowledge it. They need you to actually do something about it. What I've been hearing, Zeynab, you've been in politics about the same. I've been covering it. It's always, well, the messaging is wrong. Well, I don't really care if you understand my plight if you're not offering anything to make it easier.
That's right.
No clear economic vision. That's correct. We agree on that one. Now, let's Republicans are as the aspirational party. GOP messaging suggests they want voters to be rich. Oh, you fucking idiots. They are literally trying to copy the Republicans. Now, I want to go down. Let's go to page 4. This one is just hysterical. Point 7. I'm like reading a book report here. Page 4, point 7. Embrace moderation, individualism, and masculinity. Yes. Let's I don't know. Let's embrace Joe Rogan. What masculinity? Like the I don't know, this YouTube genre of masculine dudes, like reconnect with values like hard work, rugged individualism, and entrepreneurialism. Be more accepting of masculinity and male voters who feel alienated from the party. Hey, you know what would help male voters who feel alienated? Not having to work 3 jobs. That's not just male voters, by the way. That's women too. But, might help if they don't have to work 3 jobs, if they're not getting fucked on the assembly line, and treated like robots when they're working on the assembly line. Shift focus from progressive mission creep to core democratic issues that resonate broadly. So basically, Zeynab, the big idea here is copy the Republicans' boner for the flag, be more macho, and not listen or not try and embrace the small dollar machine, which helped lift the biggest underdog campaign in modern day presidential history twice in the last 5 years. If they had brains, they'd be copying Bernie Sanders. Well, you might say, well, he lost, Jordan. Well, we know a lot of the reason he lost was the deck was stacked against him and the DNC and everybody threw their body on the scale. But all of this, do you see that all of this autopsy and all of this like recommendations are completely absent of policy?
No
Completely,
policy. No
completely
policy.
void of substance. Say what you want about Trump. He ran on policies. Most of them are egregious. Most of them are bullshit. And he also ran on a lot of fluff, but he did run on 3 or 4 specific things. I remember, Zaina, Colin, you could take it off. I remember the light bulb went off in my head that she was probably going to lose because I did a swing state tour in October, thanks to Status Coup viewers who funded us. We went to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, 3 states in 10 days. And we didn't ask everyone who you voting for. We actually covered issues that the mainstream media wasn't, that I thought was going to be important to voters. It kind of went off in my head she's going to lose when I saw massive billboards. Kamala Harris is for raising the minimum wage. No amount given. Just raising the minimum wage. Kamala Harris supports Social Security. That was on a billboard. Like, great.
What does it mean?
You're gonna what's next? Kamala Harris supports seatbelts? I mean,
ran rehabilitating Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. She ran far to the right. Everything was just tax breaks, tax credits. There was no federal jobs program. There was no health care program. There was no real housing program. These housing credits were for people that were already rich. And she even came out and she said, you know, this basically my platform is for upper middle class Americans. She said that. She wouldn't acknowledge that there were any problems with the economy. She said it's the best economy, strongest economy we've had for years. And she started talking about the GDP, which we all know is bullshit. There was no substance. This is what she ran on. What they're suggesting is what she ran on. She abandoned the small dollar donor base. Most of her donors were billionaires and corporations and corporate lobbies and corporate super PACs. That's what she ran on. She ran on this and lost. So they're like, rinse and repeat exactly what we just did and lost.
I'd love to know, how is it that small dollar donors or reliance on small dollar donors was the problem? She raised over $1 billion in 3 months. That wasn't from small dollar donors. No. I mean, there were small dollar donors that support her, but I would say the overwhelming majority of that money came from super PACs, big money, big dollar Democrats. There was small dollar also, but small dollar support was the problem.
Trump had a larger percentage of small dollar donations than Kamala did.
And I'd love to know, Zaina, this is your wheelhouse. For those of you that don't know, Zaina was involved in Brand New Congress, was one of these lefty activist groups that this autopsy is condemning. Zaina was with Justice Democrats. You wrote AOC's speeches when she was running. So you know about these pesky leftist activist groups. In what world do these lefty groups have any power or influence? They're making it seem like lefty groups and activist groups are like turning voters in Wisconsin skin crawling, and voters in the Rust Belt and in these critical swing states are voting against Democrats because of Justice Democrats or those hippie Sunrise Movement kids. If anything, most voters don't even know who the fuck they are because the Democratic Party poo-poos them.
That's right. And, you know, they already do everything. They've already done everything that they can to suppress our candidates. I mean, they kicked, you know, Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush were just unseated by not only the, you know, pro-Israel machine, but by the Democratic Party. Everything that people have been fighting for. Look at how they crapped on Medicare for all. Look at how they turned around and ran on messaging against Medicare for all. Kamala Harris wouldn't even acknowledge that she supported universal health care in 2020 in this election. What they are basically saying is, in order to win, we need to become what we are fighting against. We need to become the Libertarian Party. We need to become the party of austerity. I mean, they have been. Let's not kid ourselves. They have been. I'm not trying to pretend like the Democratic Party hasn't already been like this, because they have. But at the same time, what they're suggesting is let's maintain the status quo, pretend like it's something different. As long as we win, we can become, extremist, white supremacist, Yahtzee party too. Let's do this thing.
And
It's so stupid, and it's because they're rich, they're out of touch, and they are unwilling to fight for anything that helps us regular folks, that helps support folks, because I guarantee you, there was not a single person or very few people in that whole gathering that are from our caste in the United States. There weren't people there there weren't Midwest farmers at this meeting. There weren't people from Appalachia in this meeting. There weren't people from poverty. They were people from generational wealth that believe these things, but they like how the Democratic Party makes them feel, because they can feel like they're a little bit more benevolent. That's the people that were there.
And the thing that I find like really hysterical about it is, on one end, you're trying to make it seem like it's the left and wokeism, this and that. I have been around the country for almost 10 years, and I've interviewed a lot of lefties, I've interviewed a lot of righties, I've interviewed libertarians, I've interviewed independents, I've interviewed people who have no label. I have never heard like a working class person mention anything about woke.
No.
I've even right wingers. Some of them do. But I haven't really heard people that care about politics or voters mention that their top concern, their second concern, their third concern, their 10th concern is woke, is cancel culture. The people constantly pushing that this is the problem are all billionaires, are all millionaires, are all cable news pundits who don't know anything and are paid not to know anything. It's all the elite pushing and trying to deflect off the fact that the Democratic Party for the last 40 years, starting frankly with Carter, I know he lasted to 100, but the neoliberalism and the shift started with Carter, accelerated under Reagan, where the Democratic Party basically tried to move right to meet. Basically, the Democratic Party did under Reagan what they're saying we should do now, which is move closer to the right wing. That's not how you defeat an ideology, by offering the Diet Coke version of said ideology.
No, they're not even trying to fight the messaging. They're not even trying to fight the social media presence. They're not trying to actually combat all the corruption, the bigotry, because there is bigotry, the rampant bigotry, the rampant corruption. They're not trying to compete against it, and then instead it's basically capitulate. And what is so deeply stupid about this, Jordan, is that it feels like it's based on them going on 4chan, Reddit, and X to determine, their campaign strategy, and they're basing it on shallow electoral maps, when they actually, if they did that one bullet, which was go to the fairs or whatever and talk to people, they'd have to rewrite this entire damn strategy, wouldn't they? If they actually started focusing on local governance and actually started the 50-state strategy again, they'd have to change, because all the other bullet points on it are not aligned with where the public is. And I know, because you've been out speaking with people. I know, because I've made hundreds of thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, calls to people all across the political spectrum when I worked campaigns. I've knocked tens of thousands of doors. And what they're describing isn't, people are a lot smarter than what the Democratic Party gives them credit for. They act like we're all a bunch of idiots and that poor people are just dumb, and they're along the same lines as a Republican, that we need a nanny state, but it's a nanny state as far as like billionaires controlling us, and we just sit back because all that we're worried about is, woke or whatever.
And we're going to move on to our next topic in a minute or two, but there are two more things with this. Number one, why this is important. People might say, Jordan, at a time like this where Trump and Musk are unleashing havoc and looting the treasury and gutting the government, you're focused on the Democrats? Well, how do you expect to defeat Trump, who I don't actually think is joking about running for a third term? We might actually, Zeynab, we might have to do a whole show just on that, because I've had it in the live doc every day, but I can't get to it. Trump and his allies, I don't think they're joking about him running for a third term.
No.
But even putting that aside, don't you have to start planning for how are you going to defeat Trump? Because whether it's Trump in a blatant violation of the Constitution or the courts runs again, or it's Vance, or it's Don Jr., you're running against Trumpism, whether it's him or Vance or somebody else. You have to start thinking, how do we defeat this? Because we lost in 2016. You lost in you almost lost in 2020. People don't realize how close Biden was to losing. It was 76,000 votes he won in 3 states. And you lost this time. So shouldn't you have been focusing on what is the opposition to this? Because if you actually want to defeat this, and I don't think it's too strong to call it fascism at this point, you need to have an alternative, not just a lighter version. And if you're looking at these Republican town halls around the country right now, those Republican voters who are screaming at Republican congressmen, they're not just yelling over Musk. There's people yelling that you're giving tax breaks to billionaires. There's people yelling that you're trying to cut Medicaid. So they're not yelling because about woke. They're not yelling about the identity politics has gone too far. They're yelling because actual populist sentiment, conservatives have populist sentiment, just like people on the left. They care about the bread and butter issues. So maybe the Democrats need to worry less about where to send the message, gun shows, barbecues, tailgates. Maybe what's the policy you're messaging on?
Right.
And lastly, I want to show you, we've had in certain corners a push for Rahm Emanuel. You notice that, Zeynab, that suddenly Rahm Emanuel is getting this push? But listen to who Senator Tammy Baldwin this morning on Morning Joe suggested should be the Democratic Party spokesperson every day to respond to Trump.
Question of making people feel defended.
Yes.
And have communication. Do you think there's a role for maybe the Democrats appointing one person, a gifted communicator, a Pete Buttigieg or someone else to do a daily briefing, something to actually centralize all these many good things that are happening, but a lot of people are not feeling like they know what the Democrats' response is.
So I have long faulted my own party for not being as message focused as my Republican counterparts, who will go and say the same thing over and over again. But we're getting there. We've held the floor. We've held more all-nighters than I've had since college.
Just what the doctor ordered. Give me some Pete Buttigieg. That's who we need. The McKinsey guy to react to the fascism.
They're already they're talking about 2028, and I think it is important to plan, in advance for that kind of thing, just from an objective standpoint. But we're only 1 month into this presidency, and it's already freaking insane. What are you doing right now? What are you doing right now? How are you planning that 50-state strategy to go in and take these local elections? What are you doing? There was no roadmap. It was all vibes, just like Kamala. In that whole document, it was all vibes. It was gaslighting. I felt like Third Way was just gaslighting us that whole time reading that.
The last thing I'll say, this is the message. I don't care if it's Bernie. I don't care if it's AOC. I don't care if it's a fucking puppet. You go up there and you give a list of 10 illegal things Trump, Musk, and the rest did today. 10 illegal things that are against the Constitution, federal, state law. And you could find much more than 10, because Doge itself, I don't even think is legal. But you do a message of 10 illegal things. Then you do a list of 10 items at the grocery store that still cost too much, that President Trump hasn't said a word on or done it. Not just grocery store. 10 items in the economy that cost way too much. And then you do, here are our ideas to make things better. Healthcare, this, that, the other thing. It's very simple. You could do that press conference every day, 15 minutes.
How are they stealing from us? What we can do to combat it?
But they're not. Instead, Hakeem Jeffries, who's the leader of the Democrats in the House, who should be doing that, reportedly was too busy at a different retreat with Silicon Valley billionaires trying to win them back. I digress. Smash the like button, share this live stream. Moving on from one soulless, directionless, corrupt pool to possibly the most corrupt administration, I don't know, since Richard Nixon. I actually think Trump is making Richard Nixon look like a Boy Scout, honestly.
For sure.
So, Zeynab, I think the sign of a good leader is say, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. Crypto is not my forte. So that's why I'm bringing on the great Freddie Brewster from The Lever, reporter extraordinaire from The Lever News. You have done great reporting on many things, including crypto, because apparently President Trump has announced a strategic crypto reserve. And just coincidentally, that strategic crypto reserve, the 4 or 5 like big crypto companies or currencies in it, all seem to belong to his crypto czar, David Sachs. Can you, for dummies like me, explain what this is?
Yeah, so Trump recently announced, the crypto strategic reserves, and essentially what this is, it would be the federal government holding X amount of like dollars worth of different types of currency. So the main ones are Ether, which is like a branch off of Ethereum. Bitcoin, obviously, that's the oldest and the most popular. There's Solana, Cardano, and one called XRP. Those are the ones that are being proposed to be put in this strategic crypto reserve. And it's actually angered a lot of the crypto sphere because they largely say that the only one worth holding on to is Bitcoin itself. So there's a lot of internal turmoil and fighting over this whole strategic reserve. But just like you had mentioned, and you hinted at, David Sachs, Trump's crypto czar, he's the founder of this company called Craft Ventures. It's a venture capitalist firm, and they're heavily invested in all of those cryptocurrencies. And on top of that, the Bitcoin reserves. This will just be a handout to the largest account holders across the world. Just 2% of all Bitcoin accounts hold more than 90% of all Bitcoin currently in circulation. So 2% hold more than 90% of all Bitcoin in circulation right now, which it's insane. It's insane. It's a graft. It's stuff I've never even could comprehend before. You had mentioned Richard Nixon. Could you imagine if Nixon thought of this? He didn't, because one, the technology wasn't around, but two, it's just the level of graft and corruption that's been unheard of. And so this is a massive electoral win for the crypto sphere. These guys dumped a little over $250 million into the election when you account for all of the the money spent directly to the candidates, as well as all the fundraising and marketing and paying the executives and everything else that goes involved with these political action committees. And so this is a huge win for these guys. And this stuff's also playing on the state level. Yeah.
I want to read this. This is from Ben Norton. He's a reporter, if you have that, Colin. Jaw-dropping corruption in the U.S. Trump's billionaire crypto czar is heavily invested in a fund whose top 5 holdings are the 5 in the U.S. government crypto strategic reserve. Mere hours before Trump announced it, someone bought $200 million in Ethereum and Bitcoin on 50 times leverage. I'm not an expert, but that would sound like insider trading to me. The crypto version.
So there's really nothing that regulates the crypto space in general anyway. The SEC under Biden did a decent job in regulating it, but now the Trump SEC has just totally rescinded all different types of oversight when it comes into this stuff, and it's dropped major cases against. I have listed Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini. Coinbase, they dumped a bunch of money into. They mostly gave to Democrats, but they dumped a bunch of money into Trump's election. Kraken is an exchange where you can just put in say I want to launder money, I can make an account on Kraken, and people put the money into this Kraken account. It swirls it around into all these other accounts and mixes it all up, and so it comes back washed. And so, it's hard to trace. Gemini, it's a crypto exchange ran by the Winklevoss twins, who were the two twins who helped like found Facebook in the early days with Mark Zuckerberg. Robinhood, crypto exchange now, but also, the stock trading, exchange for like day traders and stuff. They've all those guys have had lawsuits, pending SEC lawsuits against them drop since Trump has taken office. I mean, it's crazy.
Zaina, I don't know. Crypto's always been over my head, but something that's not. A lot of people say the next economic bubble that could be just as bad as like 2008, 2009 is crypto. It's a big bubble. And now they're talking about putting a U.S. strategic reserve. Now, while they're talking about cutting $800 million or $800 billion from Medicaid, sounds to me like if this bubble bursts, we're headed towards a massive bailout for the crypto bros, because obviously not all Americans are invested in crypto, but it affects all of us. Zaina.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, that's one of the things I was going to ask Freddie about, as if I'm 5 years old, because I'm like Jordan, I'm still trying to kind of figure this stuff out. But if this is federally backed funds, we're looking at something similar to the National Treasury, right? Only Bitcoin form, which is ironic to me because so many libertarians are against the National Reserve, right? You've got people like Curtis Yarvin that are against the National Reserve that love this idea of the Bitcoin reserve, because they see it, it's an unregulated market, but it's an unregulated market that is now, with this last executive order, backed by the federal dollar. So what could that mean for, just the US economy when it comes to how much is being backed with these scams? And with the way that crypto works, like you were mentioning before, it's just like our regular economy. It hasn't been as egalitarian as it was constructed to be, because, as you had said before, similar to the wealth in the country and the way that it's distributed, 2% of people own the majority of the wealth with Bitcoin. So it seems that if something does go wrong and there's backing similar to how the FDIC backs banks, we could be looking at runs similar that we saw in the early 1920s when it came to our American banking system.
Yeah. So yeah, this is spot on. And what I've talked to some experts about this, and they're less concerned with the Bitcoin reserves on a federal level causing like widespread financial chaos, and more concerned about states. There's a number of states that have issued similar bills for having a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And you're talking about states spending up to 10% of their general funds and or funds set aside for like pension and retirements, 10% to put into like Bitcoin. And if this market takes a crash, then there's 10% of a pension fund that's for teachers, for all different types of like federal or state employees whose pensions are now up in the air. For the feds, the one guy had mentioned like throughout the course, like gold values, throughout the course of the past like 30, 40 years, gold values have like gone up, but there was like a big crash at one point in time, I think he said in the 90s, and it didn't necessarily like affect the general economy. I mean, there was like some shocks to it, but it didn't cause like some sort of widespread chaos. But what could cause widespread chaos is that the federal government saying that this is a good asset to purchase, to invest in. So people start like investing in these. Banks start allowing leverage trading. So what that means is you're taking out loans to buy Bitcoin, to buy these crypto assets. And so if those prices drop, then all of a sudden your loan is worth more money than what you had originally taken out, because you say you took out $50,000 loan to buy $50,000 worth of crypto prices drop. Well, then your price in crypto is at like $30,000, but you owe $50,000 on the loan. And this is exactly something that the Federal Reserve issued a report in fall 2024 warning about an increasing number of people taking out loans to finance these risky crypto bets. And that's what Ben Norton mentions in that tweet you showed, Jordan, the 50x leveraged. That means they took out a loan. So you can also take out loans that so you get X amount of dollars or whatever, but it's actually like compounded. So it's like you're taking out more than that. And so this is like a huge issue when it comes to like the average person in financial institutions in particular. Um, these the Federal Reserves have issued a number of these reports, and these experts I was talking to, they said that these echo warnings from the 2008 financial crisis. You know, they're similar in language, similar in like potential for widespread chaos, and also, you know, how it could affect the average person. There's people taking out home loans and car loans based off of their crypto winnings. And, you know, the report doesn't quite detail, you know, how this necessarily affect like the payments, like as these go on. But a lot of these people are taking out their winnings and using it as a down payment for a house, you know? So it's.
Can I just move back? Because I think it's important. Like, the
Mhm.
corruption is happening so fast and furious that maybe it's not sinking in how corrupt this is. I want to repeat. David Sachs is his crypto czar. Trump clearly doesn't know anything about crypto. So
Mhm.
clearly, for Trump to create a strategic reserve, he's going to David Sachs and saying, "Hey, David, tell me which currencies or which crypto should be in the strategic reserve." And it just so happens David's answer is the 5 currencies or the 5 crypto exchanges that he's heavily invested in. I mean, it's beyond that. He's literally, it's a bank robbery. David
It's
Sachs and his ilk, other tech bros and crypto bros who are invested in the same things. Trump is just handing them money. It's kind of like fake money, but whatever. He's just handing them money. And the other thing is, am I wrong? Mysteriously, somebody invests $200 million in some of this, like right before this is announced. Well, he didn't just, a bird didn't give him a message. Obviously, Sachs or somebody was giving heads up to others. I mean, MAGA, if you're watching, we do have some MAGA. You were rightly pissed off about the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation corruption, right? You were rightly, upset about, graft and grift in Democrats. You're okay with just Trump and the people that donated to his campaign? Literally, I mean, what could be hundreds of millions of dollars in money being handed to them through insider trading. And I mean, am I wrong that this is insider trading?
I mean, it sounds like it. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to like flesh out the details. I mean, Trump's been hinting at this for a while, but it sure is like an interesting kind of coincidence. And you know, there's not coincidence in banking and finance worlds. You know, it's
Yeah.
doesn't really happen. And Jordan, beyond just David Sachs, Elon Musk is heavily invested in crypto. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, used to be the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, highly invested in crypto. JD Vance has money in Bitcoin. RFK has money in Bitcoin. The whole Trump family has their own.
Mark Andreessen.
Mark Andreessen as well, like heavily invested in the crypto sphere. Peter Thiel as well. You know, these guys who like are Trump cabinet adjacent, but the Trump family itself is also heavily invested in crypto. So the SEC just said that meme coins, these are these like shit coins that people talk about, you know, like the Dogecoin originally started off as like a meme coin. It's just like some weird internet like trend or whatever. They make like a fake crypto around. The SEC said that falls outside of its jurisdiction and will essentially no longer police these scams, these rug pulls as they're called. And that's what the Trump coin was. It was a rug. It was it's a meme coin and all this shit. So it's like I don't know who.
That's a great segue. I'd like to also ask you, because if you think there's no bottom, this seems even more corrupt. Colin, if you have it, this is from CNN. A crypto mogul who invested millions into Trump coins is getting a reprieve on civil fraud charges. Well, what do you know? A businessman who pumped $75 million into the Trump family-backed crypto tokens, that's the Trump coin that he launched right before he was inaugurated, finds himself in a fortunate position this week as federal securities regulators are hitting the pause on their civil fraud case against him. Lawyers for the SEC and Justin Sun, a 34-year-old Chinese crypto entrepreneur, asked the federal judge to put the agency's case on hold, citing the interest of both sides and the, quote, public interest. Is that not the most clear pay for play you've ever seen?
Yeah, this is shocking. And also too that $75 million he bought in Trump's meme coin, it was initially like a smaller, I think it was like $30 million like right off the bat. But that was enough money to put it over the edge for like Trump to actually get a payout from this. So Trump got $18
That's
million
right.
from this Trump coin. And Justin Sun's investment into this is what put it over the edge for it to trigger a payout to Trump.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Elon Musk donates nearly $300 million. He's handed the keys to the government, basically. And, contrary to Trump's, narrative, without Elon Musk, it's very possible he doesn't win. Elon Musk funded his, quote, ground game. He funded a lot of the digital ads, a lot of the volunteers, and Trump won the 7 swing states, but some of them were not by a lot. So it's possible even without Musk, he would have won, but it's also possible it would have been a lot closer without Elon Musk. So Musk puts in all this money, he gets full access to gut the government. Miriam Adelson gave him $100 million. Now Trump is basically allowing Israel to, basically annex the West Bank. That's what it's going to be, and expel the Palestinians, even though that they're not going to go without a fight, rightly so on their part. And then you have, hey, if you give Trump 75 million in crypto or whatever Trump coins, we'll just end your civil case. And I'm sure.
Yeah, and can I be clear on this? I mean, it's already, what is it, 12 cases that Elon Musk has ended. The CFPB was investigating Elon Musk. Several departments were investigating Neuralink because of ethical issues and the way that it's being researched, human rights violations. The labor boards were investigating labor practices at Tesla. So all of those cases have now been frozen. And now we are looking at this case from the SEC being frozen as well. So what we're not just looking at massive theft. We're not just looking at an exaggerated form of shareholder buy-ins and backdoor trading. We're also looking at the gutting of agencies and the gutting of any kind of checks on this theft in real time as the theft is happening. We're looking at the gutting of checks on that theft.
I'll add in the Facebook settlement. Mark Zuckerberg gave Trump money to his inaugural committee. He obviously got rid of the fact checking on Facebook, and then Trump and Facebook settled. I think it was for like $25 million. But that was actually my next.
Can I ask Freddie a question in just a couple minutes, Jordan? Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, so how, with the government kind of backing these funds, which is what's happening, how can that be theft of the American people's money? Because I think that that's sort of one of the things that's getting washed under in a lot of the reporting. I don't think the journalists are making it clear that this is a way that they can steal our money, the tax dollars, because people are wanting to gut the government. The people that are backing Doge are wanting to gut it because they think that it's going to get tax, they're going to get a tax break from it. Maybe they'll get $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 back. And of course, the rich people, it's a different scenario for them. But what does this mean for the average taxpayer if our government is backing this very unstable cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so great question, and what it means is that like one, there's no they fired all the cops on the beat. Their SEC's got it. There's the CFTC, but they have like a fraction of the budget of the SEC. The CFTC also mostly focuses on commodities futures, so that's like oil prices, grain prices, corn price, that type of stuff, and you can like bet and whatever on the price of whatever they'll be at. And so there's no cops on the beat to police this type of stuff. But then also, this is like a transfer of wealth upwards. And as far as actual legitimate cases you could take out against like the federal government, I'm not quite sure about that. I'll have to ask some legal experts about that. But yeah, no, Zeynab, you hit it on the head. This is essentially the government taking your tax dollars, investing it into extremely volatile assets that just a handful of people own the most amount. And and it's an industry known to pump and dump. So you get a bunch of people to buy in, then you sell off high while all the other suckers lose their money. And yeah, so
One of the
it's crazy.
one of the parts of this that I think we got to connect some dots. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that was one of Trump's first acts, was to gut this. Kyle Kalinske, I think, rightly calls it the scam police. They've returned, at least under Biden, I think it was about $9 billion, but overall they've returned upwards of $20 billion to consumers for scams. And Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, you were saying, Freddie, there really is no agencies to regulate crypto. Well, the CFPB was one of the few actually proposing some forms of regulation. And what do you know? All these tech crypto bros donated mostly to Trump. Also, crypto, by the way, they poured in a lot of money to stop Nina Turner, other progressive candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So CFPB, they're trying to propose some rules and regulations for crypto, and they're pretty much frozen on day one. They could say whatever they want for the reason to get rid of CFPB, but I'm connecting those dots that's one of the main reasons Trump, Musk, and the rest of the gang wanted to nuke the CFPB.
Yeah, you're totally right. And then also, one of the, second from winning the presidency, the next head on the most wanted list for the crypto industry was Sherrod Brown in Ohio, and they dumped a ton of money into that. And he lost re-election, and now Tim Scott, who's received a bunch of money from the crypto industry, is leading the Senate Banking Committee, which oversees, the SEC, the CFTC, and certain aspects of the CFPB.
Right. And to a broader thing, and I think Zeynab brought this up, what we were sold about crypto was the democratization and the decentralization of currency. And this was a way for like the smaller, non-Elon Musk, if they invest correctly and whatever, that they could, gain wealth. Well, it's kind of reversed itself on its head. And now it's like you said, like 2% of the people own all of it. So it's gone from like, there were a lot of people I actually trust and respect that were gung-ho about crypto in the beginning because it could give more Americans a chance who don't traditionally have the means to invest in the traditional stock market. But it doesn't seem like this is a currency anymore for the working man or woman.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I was always extremely skeptical of those claims to begin with because like stocks, like they operate in much different ways than like crypto does. Like, so if you're invested in stocks, like, you are a shareholder of a company. You have a voting right to how that company operates. You can go to shareholder meetings, you can issue proxy votes or whatever else to direct the company in a certain way, which pisses off a lot of these like, large corporations, but nonetheless, you have a right to that. Crypto, you don't have a right for any of that shit. And then also the only way to make money on it is by selling it itself. Like if you own stocks, some of them pay dividends at the end of the year. The company did a good job, so here's $20 for every whatever like stock you own. You get a payment from that company. You don't get any of that in crypto. It's not like there's no like a say in the future of how this stuff operates. It's just buy low, sell high, straight up. That's all it is. It's rocks on a street corner when it comes to like scamming tourists in like, some sort of like beach town. It's shiny rocks for sale,
It's Wall Street without even any products.
And then too, so one thing I want to mention too, so if this does go through, the strategic Bitcoin reserve in particular, right? And they invest all this money in to hold on to it and stuff like that. One way the Fed will have to like, get rid of it, they'll have to sell off portions of it, like whatever, like 70 years from now, whatever they propose in it. I forget the exact language in Senator Cynthia Lummis's bill. That's the main one in the Senate. They have to sell some of the stuff off. Well, the Feds already hold like $19 billion worth of Bitcoin in particular through like federal seizures, like, criminal investigations, that type of stuff. And they announce when they're going to sell it off. So guess what happens when they announce they're going to start selling Bitcoin? Everybody else starts selling before the federal government does, and it tanks the price. So like, you're not even going to like get a good price for this when they go to sell it, because if the federal like, government announces it's going to be selling X amount of Bitcoin, that's going to tank the price. So therefore, everybody's going to sell before the Feds do. It doesn't make any sense.
And my last question to you, and I'm certainly no expert in Argentina, But wasn't this the whole scandal with Argentina's president Milei? He
That,
kind
that was like a,
of pumped up or promoted a crypto scam, and then he made money. Like, tell people, because he was just at CPAC holding the chainsaw, and he handed it to Elon Musk. But didn't he like do similar things to what we're talking about here?
yeah, so he wasn't like behind the scenes on it, but he was paid to promote a cryptocurrency. And so he promoted the president of a country took, it's essentially advertising dollars, which is crazy. Like, I mean, I don't know what the laws are in Argentina, but you're not allowed to do that here in the US. I guess you are there, but who knows? Took money to prop up this currency called Libra. So people are like, oh, cool, like this guy who's like the anarcho-capitalist like figure, like, blah blah blah, like this is all great. You know, like people start buying it. Well, then the creators of it rug pull it is what it's called. So, like that's where it's like, oh, cool, we got all your money, yoink. And so they sell off all their like, major holdings of it. And so the price tanks. And then, the average investor or, crypto buyers just left holding the bag with nothing left in it, because they just got screwed out of this stuff. And that stuff happens all the time in the crypto sphere, and I truly can't understand why or how this industry has been able to gain the prominence it has over the course of the years. So,
I mean, we've got Trump's meme coins. We've got
Melania Trump's meme coins as
we've got
well.
Melania.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember the
Hawk Tuah girl,
Hawk
yeah,
coin?
absolutely, yeah. So, so she's also likely not going to face any sort of, federal investigation or anything because they just got rid of, they said we're no longer policing meme coins. They don't view them as a security, and the CFTC doesn't view it as a commodity. So, who's there to police it?
MAGA, I just want to ask you a question if you're watching, and I'm not condescending you. This is a legitimate question. If Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton tweeted out a coin named after them of a digital currency that made them $18 million in whatever, 24 hours, what would you be saying? Genuine question. Because I know a lot of people, including my father, would be calling for impeachment. Maybe you need to, remove the Trump blinders and the MAGA hat and just look at it objectively. Corruption is corruption, whether a Democrat's involved or a Republican. The President of the United States, his wife, his friends, his donors should not be pumping coins that really have no real world benefit to you. The only people making money off of this is, as Freddie said, about 2% of the population that just so happen to be pouring money into the campaigns. Freddie, tell people how they could find your work.
Yeah, you can find me at levernews.com, and also on Twitter I'm at Freddie.Brewster or Freddie_Brewster. I forget what it is, but yeah.
And Lever News is doing great investigative work. They're digging, they're finding a lot of where the bodies are buried, so to speak, with this corruption. So definitely follow, support them if you can, and support Freddie. He does great reporting there. Thanks for joining us again.
Cool. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Absolutely. Zeynab, I have a earth-shattering announcement to make.
What is it?
For the 400,
Are we going
for
to
the
Mars?
450 people watching, Colin, if you have the link ready, for the 450 people watching, and make sure you share it, I am proud to announce that we are hiring a new investigative, on-the-ground journalist, hopefully soon. I posted the job on Saturday. For those of you, because I know what's coming, Zeynab and I have already talked. Sadly, it's not the right fit.
I'm a single mom, guys. Until she's grown up, I can't travel all over the country yet.
So don't think we didn't think of kind Zeynab, but Zeynab will be doing more here. But needless to say, Colin, if you could put the job posting up, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just so people could see. So we posted this. Wait, go up. Thanks to you, I'm actually able to offer a decent wage. So depending on who the candidate is, we're able to offer full-time between $65,000 and $75,000, health insurance, which I'm currently behind the scenes in the process of making that available. We're also hoping to make Colin full-time soon. As I said, this is not, well, Colin is full time, but, you know, offering benefits and all that, because it's just been Colin and me for the last 7 years, just bootstraps. But this is not your typical reporter job posting and may sound counterintuitive to traditional mainstream media reporters. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I'm going to do a video later on this. But I wanted to announce it because it's a big milestone for us. I need help, but also we're growing. We've grown over 200,000 subscribers in 6 months. We've grown over 100,000 in 2 months, and we're growing paid members too. So that's why I'm able to post this. I've already gotten some submissions. I don't want to disappoint anyone, and I don't want to be condescending, but to be direct, so I don't get a ton of emails, we do want people with journalism experience. So God bless our audience and God bless activists, but we're not looking for activists in this position. We want somebody who's got reporting experience, journalism experience, preferably on camera experience, preferably somebody who could both break news and has a little personality and charisma. Because, you know, Zeynab, there's a lot of people, you could take it off the link, Colin. There's a lot of good reporters who could break news, but are kind of like watching paint dry on camera. And then there's a lot of people who have a lot of personality, but can't really break news or build sources. So it's kind of tough to get.
Be able to know what kind of questions to ask and
Yes.
and how to suss out that trail, because that's, you know, where to go. And then I was a beat journalist for a good while, and
Yes.
it does take work and dedication, but you got to have that drive and that soul to look and seek out the answers, and with that comes some passion. And also, you can't be so sterile that we're getting where we're at today, where you'll bring someone on that is saying that climate change isn't real based on one small report somewhere, and another person who's done, you know, is talking about 30,000 reports. So
You know,
there's that balance there.
It's also tough. It's also tough because, like, with Status Coup, to be clear, not that I'm looking for like a mini me. We don't need more than one, clearly. But, you know, people, I think, come to us not just because we cover stories that other people don't, not just because we stay on those stories. We don't just cover that and ignore it, but because we cover it with a certain edge. We cover it with a certain anger. We cover it with a certain righteous indignation. We cover it with a certain fury, you know? And most reporters are taught, don't show anything. Don't show passion. Don't show your opinion. Don't show that you care. Be a neutral robot. So a lot of, you know, the few applications I've gotten so far, most of the on-camera links I've looked at are just neutral robots. And I can't hold it against them because most reporters are only allowed to be that. But I actually posted in the job description, and Colin will put it in the description under the live stream. No, I want people with personality. I want your passion on screen. I remember when I was at TYT and Emma started interning for me. Emma, who's now with the Majority Report, I would talk to her before she would go on camera, and she was funny and had edge and, you know, personality. And then when she would go on camera, all of that was gone. And she would be like, you know, there's something about the camera turning on that everyone thinks, oh, I got to be very professional and this and that. So I would say to her, what happened to like the funny, cool person I was just talking to? Can we bring her on camera? So it's kind of counterintuitive. What we want the facts, but we want the personality too. Because I think people are attracted, not just with Status Coup, but independent media in general, authenticity. Like the raw person, not the fake news voice. You know how like reporters on CNN have like the fake voice. We want a real person who could both break news, is pissed off at the corruption and injustice, and will show it. And everyone has a different personality. Maybe you will be more sarcastic or humorous than I. Maybe you'll be pissed off and angry like me and rant. So the bottom line, if you have reporting experience, please apply. When I say reporting experience, examples of stories you've broken. I don't care if it's on a local news level. I don't care if it's
Local
small
news is
ball,
some of the
local
best,
stuff.
I'm telling you. There used to be
Yeah.
those newspaper journalists, man. If some of you guys are out there.
You might not have a prefer on-camera experience, but if you don't, at least, written stuff I could look at that shows you are a good writer. You could break news, because you could make somebody better on camera. I could make somebody better on camera. What you can't do, you can't teach hunger. You cannot teach tenacity. You cannot teach somebody who wants to be on there and just has that in them, that they want to be on the ground. They want to go where the story is happening. They want to cover things that other people. You either have that in you or you don't. So I could make you more charismatic, so to speak, on camera. Well, some people I can't, but I can make you better on camera. I can't give you the hunger. I can't give you the thirst.
For 3 years now, Jordan.
Yes. So, and I've made some boring ass people much better on camera. But I can't teach you hunger. I can't teach you the killer instinct. If you don't have it, don't bother. So to be clear, because I don't want to get a gazillion emails. If you're an activist, God bless you, but I'm not looking for an activist. I need somebody who's got some journalism experience. So if you match what we're looking for, email us. The job description, we'll put it in the description here. If you think you're a match and you have some experience, send us your resume, cover letter, all that good stuff. And I'm hoping.
Can I say it'll be hard work, but it'll be rewarding to do that coverage. It will be.
And I also think, not to go too behind the scenes, but as Colin could tell you, I mean, as we grow, you grow. So I've bumped Colin up as we've grown. I wish I could have paid him what he was worth in the beginning, but we didn't have any money. But I'm bumping Colin up. We give bonuses based on how we're doing. So what you start out now, you could go much higher if we grow. Obviously, we need to keep the lights on and grow. So I'm excited about it, not just because I need help, but when we started this, my desire for this, believe it or not, was never for me to be the main person. I would love eventually, not that I would go away completely, but I would love to move. I think that was the biggest problem with the Young Turks from the beginning. They called it TYT Network, but you had a certain somebody who never wanted to elevate anyone beyond him. I would love it if there were people that we were able to bring on here that catapulted way beyond me. Because this is not about me, contrary to people who think I have such an ego. I have relatively an ego. Everyone does in this business. But this is about delivering some justice. This is about putting some fuckers in prison. This is about justice journalism. And we are only as strong as how many great reporters we have, how many great voices we have. If we could develop someone that they become a huge independent media star and break a lot of stories and nobody even remembers my name, great. Great. Well, I hope you remember my name a little bit, but you get my point. We want to elevate other stars, so to speak. Because to me, not only does this new reporter, whoever it will be, allow us to cover more things and more stories, but it brings a new, unique voice. Because you already know what I think. You've heard me for almost a decade. We want to get other perspectives. And you want to know something? There are people, everybody has different strengths. So I might have a great strength at knowing what question to ask or having a gut for what the story is. Somebody else might have a better strength at combing through documents and researching shit. You know what I mean? So every reporter brings something new to the table. So I'm excited. With this, I will tell you, I didn't realize how much time this was going to occupy for me. So we might not have as much content in the short term because I got to interview people. I got to go through resumes and cover letters, and it's basically me going through it. And I've already lined up 2 interviews, but I'm excited and I'm hoping we could bring whoever this person will be on within the next month or 2. So that's it. The description is the job description is down there. And I don't want anyone to be insulted. I'm not knocking activists, but I've done that dance trying to make activists into reporters, and it never goes well. So I need somebody who's got a little reporting experiences, whether it's on camera, whether it's written, whether it's local news. Don't be shy, even if you feel like you weren't great on camera. It might be because you were not allowed to show your personality. So,
That's right.
So that's that. Real quickly, I'll get into this next story.
Oh, also, go to statuscoupnews.com and donate if you can, or become a member, because that will help us to continue to grow if you're not already a member.
I should, you know what? That's a great fucking point, Zaina. And I'm going to take out my glasses because I don't want anyone to get it twisted. We still need your money. If you have not signed up, please, please, please sign up as a paying member because, Colin, come on, even though you still don't have a camera, it's not just me who needs help. Poor Godzilla there, or whatever that is. We need a new producer too. Colin has been doing the editing, the graphics, and frankly, I appreciate it, but I'm sure he doesn't want to be doing it. Most of kind of the customer service, you could say. So all the emails that come into us in terms of people who forget their password or people that need to cancel their memberships but don't
And
know.
I was helping with that for a while. I know what kind of work
Yes.
Colin's done in the background because I have
A
seen
lot.
it.
Pretty much Colin goes through our email inbox and is the troubleshooter for everyone. Colin has been working a lot of weekends because as we've grown, I've been doing videos on the weekends to kind of add more fresh content. He's editing it. Colin does not work 9 to 5. He's worked around the clock. So we're trying to hire another producer, not just to free up Colin, but again, with another reporter. That means more reporting on the ground. That means more videos. That means more everything. You can't just have Colin doing it 24/7. So we need to grow even more if we're going to hire another reporter and a full-time producer. Did I miss anything, Colin?
No, and it'll do things like if we have someone who handles that sort of ancillary stuff, in addition to having those more on-the-ground videos to edit and stuff. But me and others will be able to spend more time actually doing those sort of cool montage edits and just better quality in general. That takes more time to do that. We just don't have time for right now.
Yes. And the last thing I'll say, we still, we have no funding from the crypto bros. We have no funding from Wall Street. We have no funding from the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, or the military industrial complex. Our funding comes from you, the people. So if you're not a member yet, this is what you're supporting. On the ground reporting, investigative reporting, and what I like to call justice journalism. All right. Lastly, have you noticed that RFK's tune on the measles seems to have rapidly changed? So I did a video earlier today, on he kind of sort of urged people to get vaccinated. Like the headlines were he urged it. But if you actually read the Fox News piece he wrote, he didn't really urge it. Anyway, well, now his top communications person or top staffer at HHS has quit 2 weeks after he was confirmed. So the top spokesperson at the Health and Human Services Department has abruptly quit after clashing with RFK and his close aides over their management of the agency amid a growing measles outbreak. Two-person familiar told Politico. Thomas Corey announced on Monday he had resigned effective immediately just 2 weeks after joining the department as its assistant secretary for public affairs. Quote, I want to announce to my friends and colleagues that last Friday I announced my resignation effective immediately. He wrote in a post to his LinkedIn page, to my colleagues at HHS, I wish you the best and great success. So we'll get back to that. But another, I don't think small thing, Zaina. I mentioned this in the video I did earlier, but I'm going to mention it again here. RFK Jr. moves to eliminate public comment on health and human service decisions. In notice to Federal Register, health agency says public participation is not needed in many decisions. I have a source that works at Health and Human Services who basically told me that this is going to basically speed up a lot of what RFK wants to do because public comment generally delays whatever it is, a new rule, a new guideline for 6 months to a year. If you've been involved in the environmental movement, you know, when they post the new pipeline is coming or something, you generally get a public comment. Usually the government ignores
a specified public comment category for physicians, administrators at hospitals, for epidemiologists. So for the public sector that are involved in health services. And wouldn't you want to hear from what doctors are facing on the ground at hospitals or what epidemiologists are saying across the country that are doing the research and following what's happening?
Right. So let's start with, I mean, it seemed inevitable, but I'm sorry, you got an anti-vaxxer running the head of the U.S. Health Department. I don't know who this person is that resigned, but 2 weeks is not a good look. He's also, they delayed, or they're pausing or rescheduling the meeting for people who determine the next flu vaccine. I don't know if you heard about that, which is a major problem because for the flu vaccine, you need to get on it like a year before that vaccine to target whatever, the experts and scientists anticipate will be that year's strand. So any delay in that means next year's flu vaccine is weakened. We've had the worst flu outbreak in 15 years this winter. So he's doing all sorts of crazy shit. Last week, Colin, if you could play that clip, at the cabinet meeting, he didn't sound so concerned about the measles outbreak.
We're watching it, and there are about 20 people hospitalized, mainly for quarantine. We're watching it. We put out a post on it yesterday, and we're going to continue to follow it. Incidentally, there have been 4 measles outbreaks this year. In this country last year, there were 16. So it's not unusual. We have measles outbreaks every year.
So he was basically saying it's not unusual. By the way, this has been the worst measles outbreak in Texas, and particularly in 30 years. Colin, be careful down there. So all of a sudden, his tune has changed. He wrote this op-ed where he kind of sort of called to get vaccinated, but it was really just saying that vaccination works for this, but ultimately it's up to the parent. Yeah, we know it's up to the parent, but they're looking for guidance from you, should they or not. And why this is important, because, there's already the anti-vaxxers saying, Jordan, big deal. There's measles every year. It's not just measles. Bird flu is all over the fucking country. We're now importing eggs from Turkey. And it seems to me he's only changing his tune on the measles vaccine because of the backlash he received from that clip we just showed, because he was minimizing it. And he got confirmed by basically hoodwinking the few Republicans who cared about public health by saying he wouldn't, try to dismantle vaccines. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts?
Well, a couple of things. First off, measles isn't just, it's not just simply chickenpox, right? I mean, the fevers associated with measles can have long-lasting mental health issues. It can damage your heart. The things that your immune system, it wrecks your immune system. So the things that happen to these children that get measles, even if they don't lose their life from it, can be debilitating. And I know that, I'm not sure, I think we may have another clip or two to play on this that I saw in our deck there. But it is, even though it's only four, the numbers of people getting sick within the outbreak, the 16 comparatively to the 4, and it's been on the rise. So this isn't something that he can mention last year, but he's not going back far enough, right? Because last year was one of the first years we had seen outbreaks in more than 2 decades, actual outbreaks of measles, because we had nearly eradicated measles at this point. And the lack of sincerity about this, I think he's kind of being wishy-washy, because now he's actually in a position where there could potentially be some accountability for his actions in the future. If this escalates to a point, there could be accountability for him, but he's still wishy-washy on it.
The thing also is, everything that he has said is the problem with, he has said a lot of things are the problem with science, right? But his mentality and a lot of his supporters' mentality is the scientists don't go case by case. They go in with a predetermined opinion and they don't let the science follow. Well, it's clear to me he's doing what he alleges is their fault.
It's true.
At that meeting, he's trying to downplay it because his go-to default position is, disease outbreaks are because of our poor nutrition. Disease outbreaks and all this stuff could be handled by better nutrition or, exercising or whatever, or natural remedies, this and that. So he's got to
just stop being poor.
right. So he's got a worldview, which I think is very batshit and backwards and deranged. But he's got a worldview that he's already arriving to most of these outbreaks with a position to downplay it and minimize it. Like when he said measles outbreaks happen every year, I mean, he had the information at that time. This was the worst outbreak in 30 years in Texas. So if you have the factual information that this is the worst outbreak in 30 years and you're publicly saying, this is no different than any other, well, you're kind of just pushing your agenda there. You're downplaying it because it doesn't fit your narrative. So that's dangerous. When you don't have somebody that actually is taking things on a case-by-case basis, actually is looking at the data, is looking at the facts, and their mind and their decision-making is clouded by their ideology. Because ideology is not just political. You can have an ideology in health when it comes to health. You can have an ideology when it comes to race. You can have it's not just, hey, I'm a Democrat or a Republican. He has a ideology that vaccines are dangerous or whatever. And he also has an ideology that that everything's overblown. So if there is a real, like bird flu right now, to me, it seems like he thinks it's not something to worry about yet because there's not human to human transmission. But most experts will tell you, well, it seems to be spreading much quicker and faster between different species and animals. And all it takes is one mutation for it to go human to human. But it seems they're not doing anything about it.
Well, there's a class divide.
They laid off, Zeynab. They laid off the people at NIH who were working on bird flu.
Right.
So as dangerous as what Trump and Musk are doing, I would say one of the most dangerous things so far is him. Because just because there's not an emergency now, this is like, and some COVID truthers will get triggered by me saying this. To me, think of November, December 2019, when we heard about something going on in China, but it was just going on in China. To me, this could be a couple months before something much more worse for us, whether it's bird flu. Measles is now in 10 states, the outbreak. And like you said, it's not just death. I love these people, these anti-vaxxer, this and that. Oh, more people die from car accidents. Well, so we shouldn't care about people dying from measles? We shouldn't care if people die from bird flu because more people die from car accidents? I mean, it's just crazy.
Or if people have lifetime disabilities from these things. And the fact we don't have universal health care, RFK Jr. does not think that health care is a human right. So if people in impoverished communities there's an outbreak, and one of the things about the vaccine is it doesn't 100% prevent measles either. It's twofold. You have to have the vaccines in the population, and then that calls down the strains of measles, because measles can also come in different strains. So it's such a mess, and it's such a mess because this could balloon very, very, very quickly. And it's not, I don't see any indication that there is any kind of federal government tracking of what is really happening. There is no announcement from the CDC or NIH regarding this. There's no precautions being told to schools in these areas where this is happening. So I don't see him taking any of these things seriously, but he is a person that said, my family did pretty good throughout our lives. We didn't get sick that much. So that tells you that, it has to do with lifestyle choices. Buddy, you are political royalty. Wealthy, golden spoon in your mouth, not just a silver spoon. Your family is not a benchmark for where most of us are. Most
And
Americans don't have access to the best doctors their entire life from birth to death.
or
They
food.
don't live, they don't have, they have to work for a living. They don't have people cleaning their houses for them, taking care of their children, being able to go on luxurious vacations. This isn't the way most people live. It's such an out of touch assumption to base his analysis on his family being healthier because they can afford to be healthier.
Right. So I'm just saying, folks, I don't think this will be the last of the resignations there. And I think you should actually read the piece he wrote, because he did not actually really urge people to get vaccinated. All he said, and by the way, as I pointed in the video I did earlier, and definitely check that out because I did a video in depth, Fox News literally had to pluck out the part of his op-ed that kind of sounded like he was telling people to get vaccinated and move it up to like up high in the story because he put it 7 paragraphs down.
Isn't it interesting that they're covering for him, though? That tells you that the public is likely not happy about what is happening if even Fox News is covering for him on this.
Right. So I'm just saying, folks, there's something called a calm before a storm. I don't subscribe to the leftists who called COVID a hoax and, all that. There's a difference between big pharma and the for-profit health insurance industry being a massive scam and medicine, science, and data. There's a reason. So I think there's been a conflation where because there's big pharma and fraud and scams in big pharma, don't trust the data, don't trust the science, don't trust the medicine. No, most of the medicine actually works. It's the mechanism for getting the medicine that doesn't. So those are two different things. And I think there's a lot of people with big platforms on YouTube that kind of weaponize people's anger and disenchantment with COVID and school shutdowns and isolation and this and that to turn you against any science data or experts.
Right.
So if there is an outbreak like bird flu or something like that, oh, it's just another COVID hoax. They've kind of mentally gotten you to that place not to trust anything or not to worry about anything. Well, I don't trust Joe Rogan for my scientific or medical knowledge. I certainly don't trust RFK.
Come on, you didn't watch Fear Factor?
Or Kash Patel, the new FBI director, who is apparently hawking like pills to reverse the effects of the COVID vaccine. Like such obvious.
And that's an industry in itself, Jordan, an unregulated industry. But all these supplements and pills and everything else that these guys push, that is also massive corporations. That is also a part of the industry. And you know who owns a lot of those pills and a lot of those businesses? Big Pharma. Big Pharma still owns a lot of the herbal supplement companies. And so when they're pushing you to buy, and I'm not saying that there aren't good herbal supplements or that medication doesn't come from that and that some home remedies are amazing for certain things. I'm saying that you can't ignore the science. And I'm also saying that when they're pushing this garlic supplement cures cancer, maybe you should double check that. And also realize that a lot of these pills that are being pushed are just other products within the portfolio of Big Pharma, believe it or not.
Yep. So that's all I got. Let's read some super chats. Juicy became a Status Coup YouTube member. Appreciate it. Juicy. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. Elise Coppers became a YouTube member. Thank you. Thank you. Folks, becoming a member, I love you. If you are going to become a member, we love you to do it on our website. So we love it when you become a member. But if you can, sign up to our website. You could cancel on YouTube if you signed up on YouTube and sign up on our website. I tell you that because we can't get your email if you sign up through YouTube. We don't want your email just so we could beg you for money every day. We want your email so we could alert you when we're live on the ground. We want your email so we could you could join our Substack for when we break news. Do our news reports. So it's helpful to have your email. Also,
and join our members only calls. which
Yes.
we have every once in a while.
So if you sign up if you signed up through YouTube and you just want to keep it there, that's fine. But if you don't mind taking the step, cancel on YouTube, sign up to our website, statuscoup.com/join. All right. Dave L, super chat, $5. Remember, Tulipomania, crypto and AR are like that. Stupid solutions that nobody needs that just happen to become commodified pointlessly. Correct.
True.
Philip gifted one Status Coup membership. Thank you, Philip. Appreciate that. Philip, $10 super chat. So-called public comment was used by Big Pharma to block legal access to MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD in a very cynical way against the overwhelming consensus medical science. I'm not saying public comment can't be weaponized, but I also think having no public comment can go the other way, where bad things are rammed through. And because there is no public comment, the public doesn't even know about it. So it could go either way. Philip, PTSD in Texas, too, way more dead than from measles. 1+ American dead per hour from PTSD among just U.S. military veterans. When was this last news? You're not wrong, but that doesn't discount what's going on right now with measles. That's why I don't like the argument people make, like, more people die from X. Okay, but there's seatbelts for the car. So you choose to drive and you take the risk, but at least you have seatbelts. Well, for measles, the seatbelt is the vaccine. There's no like antivirals I know of that you could take a pill if you get measles and it drastically goes away in a few days, like taking an antibiotic for, something. So when people say, hey, more people die from X, this and that, so we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, we shouldn't try to eradicate something happening right now because a lot of people die from this. And by the way, a lot of people, when people point out more people die from heart disease or this and that, part of that is because they don't have universal health care in this country, something RFK is against. They don't have, they're working 2 to 3 jobs, and they don't have the extra income to go to the gym and exercise. They don't have enough money. Poor and working class people, most of the time, only have enough money to get fast food, which is now even more expensive under inflation. So,
and I used to do counseling for PTSD. I worked with domestic violence survivors, but also with veterans. And the majority of deaths or trauma from long sustaining PTSD is from domestic violence. And so you could make the same argument that, why isn't domestic violence talked about more in regards to PTSD than veteran PTSD, which I think they both should. They both need talked about. Both of these things are critical. They're both important. And that comes to the measles outbreak as well, is that, yes, okay, we can acknowledge that the public comment section caused problems in this one area, because I do agree MDMA could potentially be a great treatment and the science shows that, but at the same time acknowledge that in this area it's problematic, acknowledge that if we talk about measles now it's problematic. It's not if and or, it's all of, you can exist within all of those things at once, and all of those things can be true.
Right.
I think the seatbelt analogy was a really good one.
Right. So I just think, honestly, there's this mentality out there of like whataboutism, or like, why are we freaking about this when there's all these other things? Well, if I could get on my broom and go, heal the world, when people say, why are you covering this and not that? Because I'm only one person. So your response can't reflexively be, well, why are we worried about this, but it's not news about this? Well, I agree that veteran suicide should be news. We should do more about that. But
and guys, email us if there's a topic that isn't being covered that's happening in your community or that you're aware of, and put it on our map, because we actually do read those, and we will cover things that come across our desk when it's relevant, when it's current, and yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, Zeynab, tell everyone where they can find your wonderful work.
I am on Substack.com at Bullhorn Bulletin, or you can just look up Zeynab Day. You can also follow me on Twitter at Zeynab Day. We will have a new project that is coming out with the amazing Lila and Pat from Punch Up Pod, where we will be covering we'll be doing a series on the new techno monarchy that we're seeing happen. Where did Elon Musk get all of his ideas from? What is a roadmap that is being followed? Because it's not exactly Project 2025. It's something different, right? You be on the lookout for that as well. And yeah, I'll be submitting some stories to Status Coup as well. So I'll be seeing you guys around. And I was really glad to join today again.
Thank you, Zeynab. Thank you, Colin. Make sure, if you're not yet a member yet, do it today. Help us get this reporter and hopefully expand beyond that. Statuscoup.com/join. We'll see you back here tomorrow.